Hey friends, so welcome to Django Model Unleashed series. Okay, as of now, we have discussed many topics as part of this series itself, right? We have covered the basics of the Django model, and we have discussed about the fake migrations and auto null versus um, auto null add, null versus blank. Since we are basically doing all the migration or having the data in MySQL. Also, we have seen how the data looks like in table data structure looks like in MySQL database. Also, we have discussed about related name, related query name, and also we discussed about many to many field and built-in versus custom validation. And last video we discussed about the meta class. So as per this continuation, we're going to discuss about the model attributes and custom method in the model. Or model has it has inbuilt method also. Also, we can have our own custom models. We'll take a look in action in a moment. But as we using the Django documentation as a reference as per this entire series, right? So the next topic I want to discuss with you on the model attributes. So model attributes, right? The model attributes is something like think about it's a class. Under the class, you might have many information about the class, like the variables, global variables, methods, properties, everything, right? It has a bunch of metadata information about the class, right? Since every model we are creating in the model.py file, it is inheriting from models.model. It's again as a class. So as you all know, right? If you're not familiar with class concept, I would suggest to take a look on the Python object-oriented programming video here. Here we discussed about the how we can create a class, what are the all other variable attributes, and what are the object instance, everything. So as far as the model or class concerned, we can access the class using the object instance, right? So that object is different, and so that is where we can able to uh, access the or access the class attributes using, right, using the object instance. Okay, so that is the key point we have to make sure. So every model, it has its own attributes. So one of the most important attributes as far as the model concerned, it's called objects. Every the row or every uh, the model, each and every model, it should have object. By default, the object, the every class, it has the object called manager attributes in a given specific model. So though in our post app, right, we haven't mentioned any objects here, but by default, what Django will take reference is object equal to manager. So this is something, it's a default behavior of Django. So every model, it should have at least one object instance with this manager class, right? So that is all about having the object attributes. So most, that's what they're given here. Most attribute model is the manager. Of course, we could discuss more about manager, custom manager in this series, but as of now, we'll stick with what is model attributes and methods. So how can we access this objects, right? So if we take a look here, I have a two terminal. One terminal server is running. Another terminal I have a shell. Let me quickly do the make migration. Changes and migrate if there is any no changes to make sure. Okay, so now in order to access let me clear the screen. Okay, so Python manage shell. So this is a Django shell, right? So in order to access the post model, you can simply import from post. Though this post doesn't have any object attributes, right? But still, you can able to access this instance, object instance. If I type post dot objects, what you're seeing, it is having object called manager, right? So um, that is the default attributes for each individual class from the model class perspective. Okay, so um, again, if you take a look on all these documents here, you may be able to understand the actual concept of having the object instance. But one more point here, using class we can able to access the object instance, but we cannot access via the object instance. What does it mean is, if you see, I can able to access the get the manager object, like calling that class model itself, right? But we cannot, let's say if I type objects dot get id equal to 1, if I try to access the object, what you're seeing, manager is not accessible via post instance, because p variable for a given class, it's called instance for a given class, right? We cannot access manager using instance. Rather, we can able to access using the class attributes approach. So just keep in mind about how we can able to access the manager via instance versus the class. Okay, that is all about having the model attributes. Anyway, of course, we're going to discuss more about manager and all the stuff in the series. Okay, then what about the model method? So we already seen couple of um, default method, right? Like dunder str. There is also one more. Many. Sorry. There is some. There is many inbuilt method. It's available for a given model in the model class. Since we inherited from models class, so this model class, it has many inbuilt methods. So when I say inbuilt method, it has that method in the given class, like equal and there is one more called hash, and there is one more called get absolute URL. So this and all really helpful when we create the view URL and template those stuff in later in a specific project. We'll discuss about all this stuff. But these all the inbuilt common method as part of the model class. But what if I want to customize this model? What does it mean is, for let's take a look. Let's assume um, in this post model, I cannot explain. I mean, there's no use case to. There is many use case, but I want to stick with simple use case so that it would be helpful to understand the real concept. Let me bring back this. I somehow I already created. I think I can. What I'll do is let me uncomment this. So what I did is I have I just created one model called a person. So here I want to here I want to grab the person first name and person last name and birth date. Okay, so forget about birth date now. I don't want to have birth date. Now let's have the dunder str method in order to have in our admin page. Or forget about this method right now. We cannot. We'll stick with just these two field name called the first name and last name. So since we added a new model, what we had to do? We had to do the make migration, right? Make migration and migrate and run server. Okay, now we created the person. Okay, so now I want to access. So better to exit from the old shell and log into the new shell because we created the new objects. I want to access that. Now let me move a little bit more here, and I want to access this person model. So what I have to do? This is a blog app. So from blog app dot models file models import this person, right? So now I want to create an object, person objects dot create and first name equal to Rob and my last name equal to William. Okay, so we created a object instance for this two value, for this two column here, Rob and William. If I access P, I can able to see that if I access P dot first name, Rob, right? So that is simple way we can access the value of an object, right? Now think about it. This has been live to the production. Now something you want to add the new field name called so first name. I want to concatenate first name and last name. So of course you can create the field called full name like this, and while creating an object you can pass the both first name and last name in an object instance creation, right? But always, this is something I do. This is not something useful case to store a full name um, in database, right? As long as if there is any necessity to store full name in a database table, um, it is not mandatory, right? So, but as far as the front end perspective, I definitely have to concatenate, I have to show the full name of a given person in a front end, right? So basically, I want to have something like first name plus space p dot last name. Um, so this is something I have to do um, every object. If I want to access the object full name, the person full name in my view, in my template, I have to do all this kind of stuff in order to access the full name. But think about if I have a single point of method, if if it if it do concatenation of this first name and last name somehow in backend, if I able to access like full name like this, then that is more uh, right approach, or it's a more Pythonic way, or it's more Pythonic way, right? In order to access, in order to write a perfect code, right? So that is where that custom models will help us to achieve that. So what we can do is, let's say, define full name, and it will access, it will take the self as uh, default argument and return f string and call self dot first name and some space, one more parameter, self dot last name, right? If I created this object models like this, what I had to do, I had to do the make migration again, migrate, though it's not really required, better to always safe aside to do your migration. So let me exit from the shell, clear my screen. Um, if I do, if I import the block again, block, um, post, sorry, models, import and post, sorry, person, right? It's a person. Now let's create a person dot objects dot create first name equal to, let's say, Susan, um, and last name, let's say, some, how we, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm just typing some name. Okay. Now, if I try to access my instance, it's perfect, right? I can able to access the first name as there's no change on accessing instance. But what if I want to access the full name like this? Well, it returns the method, right? But in order to access the method, we can do full name like this, right? What we're getting, we we have created our first own custom model in Django, the model itself, right? So this this really help us to concatenate the given string, um, and we can able to access in views, URLs, forms, and even in templates in various methods, right? So this is super cool. This is whatever we are seeing. It may not be a right situation, but this is one of the way we can think about you in your situation about your project. You may have a number of models, existing models, but instead of extending the field, you can think of having the custom models, and then you can play around with those models for a different logic, different requirements, right? That's a super simple. Cool. Now, what else? Now the problem is every time I have to access the method like a function call. This is something I don't want, right? This is where, again, the cool Python is going to help us. If you um, if you're not familiar with the property, Python property decorator, let me know in the comment section. I will create a separate video on Python decorator. But what it will help us at high level is the Python decorator will help us to convert the method as a variable, convert the method as a variable. So when I say variable, we can able to access the full name like this. What we are seeing right now, if I type p dot full name, it return the method objects, right? Rather than return the string, it return the objects. But if you take a p dot first name, it's a instance variable and return the string. So basically, in order to return the string, I can overwrite my method using the property method just like this. If I type property like this, and let me do make migration again, do migrate and do run server. Let me exit from here, Python shell, from blog dot models import post, sorry, person. Um, Let me try to access the old object which we created. I think we haven't saved that, right? So it will not come. Anyway, let me create one more time. Sorry, it's um, person dot objects dot create first name, because we haven't saved, so I can still use the existing one. Can go with same name, Rob and William. If I try to access the first name, yes, I can able to. If I type full name, what you're seeing, without passing the parameter like this, I can able to access, right? So, but if you want to, if you want to run, if you want to access both method like this, also if you want to return, basically if you want to return the string value, then you can use property method. If you want to stick with method call, also you can simply copy this and you can have like this. So if you have like this, then you can able to access in both the method using both the steps, like p dot full name parenthesis, like method call. Also you can access via variable. This is super cool. Okay, so I hope you guys really understand the concept of having the custom model. Uh, this is, sorry, custom method in a model. And this is really helpful when you have a complex model. On top of that, you want to do some on logic in order to retrieve that, in order to render some data in a front end. I hope you guys um, Okay, so yeah, so that's all I want to cover this video. I'm just thinking, guys, is there any section I missed today? Maybe one of the other common method, how we can override the save method. So basically, when you when you save the objects, right, like a p dot save here. So before after you save something, before saving the object in the database, you can also overwrite those concept uh, using save method. This is something I want to cover as per this attributes, but that is little important. Also, I don't want to confuse with this custom model. Maybe what I'll do is we'll see in next video about the custom save overwrite method. Okay, so we'll see in next video, guys.